"Just sit down, sister, trust me," the rancher said calmly, and moments later, she finally understood why. The sky above the crystalline forest shimmered with hues of violet and green, colors her eyes had never seen before. She paused for a moment, letting the sheer beauty of the place sink in. The Orion expanse was nothing like Earth, nothing like the textbooks she had studied. It was wild, mysterious, and strangely welcoming. Her shuttle hovered in the distance, engines quiet after the long journey through the outer sectors. Isla adjusted her backpack and checked the scanner strapped to her wrist. The readings were stable. Oxygen levels were breathable, temperature was mild, and the creatures she had seen from orbit were moving in predictable patterns. Perfect for observation, at least, she hoped it would be. She stepped carefully toward a narrow path that led into the forest. Every step seemed to echo in the silence, and she couldn't help but feel like someone, or something, was watching her. The crystalline trees reflected light in 1,000 directions, creating a sparkling canopy overhead. Isla tilted her head and took a deep breath. This was what she had come for. Months of preparation, years of study had all led to this moment. "Stay calm, Isla," she whispered to herself. "Observe, don't interfere." As she walked, she noticed faint tracks in the moss. They were unlike any animal footprints she had seen before, elongated shapes with delicate indentations, as if the creatures that made them had toes tipped with tiny suction cups. She knelt down, brushing a finger over one of the tracks. The surface was slightly sticky but not unpleasantly so. She tapped her scanner against it, recording the pattern. "Interesting," she murmured. "These creatures are more intelligent than expected." Suddenly, a voice broke the quiet. "You're looking at them the wrong way." Isla jumped and spun around. A man was walking toward her, calm, measured steps. He was tall, with sun-tanned skin and gray-streaked hair tied back neatly. His clothing was simple but functional: a faded green shirt, sturdy boots, and a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his eyes. He carried nothing but a small satchel over one shoulder. I didn't hear you come in," Isla said. "Most people don't," he replied with a small smile. "Name S. Ronan, rancher here. You must be the scientist from Earth." Isla raised an eyebrow. "Rancher?" She looked around at the alien forest. "Ranching on this planet," Ronan nodded. "Yes, the creatures you're studying, they're part of my herd." Isla blinked. "Herd? Come," he said simply, motioning for her to follow. "I'll show you." Curiosity overpowered caution, and Isla followed him along the path. They walked for what felt like miles, but she hardly noticed. The forest was alive in subtle ways. Soft hums that seemed to vibrate through the air, occasional flashes of light that moved independently of the sun, and gentle movements among the crystalline leaves. Each step revealed something new: a leaf that curved toward them as if curious, a small creature that paused to watch, then vanished into the undergrowth. Finally, they reached a clearing. The sight made Isla's breath catch. A herd of creatures grazed in the open space. They were about the size of deer, but their translucent bodies shimmered like liquid glass. Their long, slender limbs moved with grace, and tiny lights ran along their spines in rhythmic patterns. As they grazed, they emitted soft melodic sounds like the hum of a distant instrument. The entire scene felt like a dream. "These are yours?" Isla asked, astonished. "Yes," Ronan said calmly, "and they're much smarter than most scientists believe. They communicate, they learn, and they sense emotion. If you want to study them, you need to understand that first." Isla glanced at him, skepticism in her eyes. "You expect me to what? Sit here and stare at them?" Ronan chuckled softly. "Exactly. Sit down, sister, trust me." She hesitated. Her training screamed that observation required careful notes, samples, sometimes even controlled tests. But something about his calmness, his patience, made her pause. Slowly, she lowered herself to the ground on a smooth patch of moss, folding her legs beneath her. She took out her notebook and pen, ready to record her observations, but also ready to simply watch. Hours passed. Isla noticed details she would have missed if she had rushed. The creatures didn't just graze, they interacted. Two of them nudged each other gently, exchanging a series of hums. Another approached a small crystalline plant, touched it with its elongated limbs, and then emitted a soft, pulsing light that seemed to ripple across the herd. They were communicating in ways Isla had never imagined, using light, sound, and movement all at once. Ronan sat beside her quietly, occasionally pointing out subtle behaviors. "See that?" he asked. "The one with the pulsing light. It's warning the others of a change in the wind. They adapt faster than any human technology we've sent here." Isla scribbled furiously in her notebook. "Incredible," she whispered. They really understand their environment." "Yes," Ronan said simply. "And they can understand you too, but only if you listen." "Listen?" she asked, puzzled. He nodded. "Not with your ears, not with your instruments. With your attention, your patience, your mind. That's what humans do best. We think, we empathize, we adapt. That's why they respond to us differently than to machines." Isla leaned back on her hands, letting the words sink in. She had studied alien communication for years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing had taught her the importance of simple presence, of sitting still and observing without interference. The sun, or whatever passed for the sun here, shifted in the sky, casting long shadows through the crystalline trees. The herd moved with coordinated grace, avoiding each other's paths, adjusting their positions with subtle signals. Isla felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, she wasn't just a scientist studying a new world. She was part of it, even if only for a moment. Ronan spoke again softly. "It's not about control, sister. It's about understanding. If you try to dominate them, you'll fail. If you try to force them to fit your expectations, you'll learn nothing. But if you watch, wait, and think, then you see what they really are." Isla nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand yet, but a seed had been planted. She realized that this was not just a lesson in biology. It was a lesson in humanity, in patience, and in respect. Her mission had been to study the creatures, but perhaps the creatures and Ronan were studying her in return. As evening approached, the forest glowed with bioluminescent light. The herd began to settle, curling into elegant resting positions. Isla felt a smile tug at her lips. She had come here to explore the unknown, but she had already discovered something far more valuable. A lesson in how humans could touch a world without breaking it, how observation and empathy could be just as powerful as any technology. Ronan stood, brushing off his hands. "Time to rest," he said. "Tomorrow I'll show you more. You'll see why I asked you to just sit." Isla followed him back toward the small settlement he had built at the edge of the forest. Her mind buzzed with notes, observations, and new questions. The day had been long, but she felt alive in a way she hadn't expected. And somewhere deep inside, she knew. The moment she had doubted him, hesitated, questioned the simplicity of just sitting down, was the moment she had begun to understand. Morning on the crystalline planet came slowly, as if the world itself wanted its visitors to savor the light. The sky was a soft gradient of lavender and pale green, reflecting off the glassy leaves of the towering trees. Isla awoke in the small, neatly kept cabin at the edge of the forest, the faint hum of the alien ecosystem drifting through the open window. Ronan was already awake. He stood outside, hands resting on his hips, watching the herd as it moved quietly through the clearing. The creatures were awake too, their translucent bodies glowing faintly in response to the early light. Isla pulled on her boots, grabbed her notebook, and stepped out to join him. "Good morning," she said, a little sheepishly. I think I understand a bit more now." Ronan's gray eyes twinkled under the brim of his hat. "Bit more?" he asked. "Bit more is a start. Understanding takes time. That's what I'm here for." Isla followed him silently as he led her deeper into the forest. Unlike yesterday, the path was less obvious, winding through narrow clearings and around clusters of crystal trees. She kept her scanner in hand but didn't use it yet. Today, she wanted to see the world as Ronan did, without interference, without constant measurement. They arrived at a wide, open space where the herd was already grazing. But this time, something was different. A young creature, smaller than the rest, was separated from the group, its movements hesitant. Isla noticed it immediately and knelt down instinctively, observing quietly. "See that one?" Ronan asked. "It's new, just hatched, you could say." They learn from the older ones, but at first they're shy. "How do you know what it's thinking?" Isla asked, fascinated. "I don't," he said with a gentle smile. "I guess. I watch and I notice patterns. That's all humans need, patterns. The rest comes naturally." Isla crouched beside him, her eyes fixed on the young creature. It stepped slowly toward the others, then paused, glancing back at the empty clearing. Its body flickered with faint lights, a soft hum filling the air. She jotted notes. Body light increases when uncertain. Hum patterns suggest emotion. Cautious approach toward group. Hours passed. Isla began to notice subtle interactions that she could not have measured with any instrument. One of the older creatures nudged the young one gently, its lights pulsing in rhythm with a hum. The young creature responded with a similar, slower pulse. They moved closer together, mirroring each other's gestures. "They're teaching it," Isla said softly. "Without words, without force, just showing, guiding," Ronan nodded. "Exactly. They don't need dominance or punishment. They trust each other because they understand each other. That's the difference between humans and technology. Machines can follow instructions, but they can't understand emotion or intent. Humans can if we take the time." Isla looked at him, absorbing every word. She had studied alien behavior for years, reading every theory and analysis, yet nothing had prepared her for this. It was a lesson she couldn't have learned from a book. Empathy, patience, and observation could unlock a world that raw data could not. By midday, the sun, or its alien equivalent, was high in the sky. Isla's stomach reminded her she hadn't eaten. Ronan offered her a small bundle of food, simple but nourishing. They sat together on a flat patch of moss, eating quietly while the herd moved around them. "Why do you let them wander so freely?" she asked, curiosity winning over politeness. "Because control isn't necessary," he said. "Humans always think we need to control what we don't understand, but the creatures teach us that understanding comes first. Respect comes first. Control is the last step if it's needed at all." Isla nodded, chewing thoughtfully. She tried to imagine applying this approach to her work on other planets, to other alien species. It was difficult to do, even to think about, but the results here were undeniable. The herd moved with harmony, coordinating without conflict, communicating without aggression. It was a society in miniature, balanced and elegant. After lunch, Ronan led her to a small hill overlooking the clearing. From there, she could see patterns emerge across the herd that she had missed at ground level. One group moved in a sweeping arc, while another cluster shifted toward a cluster of crystal flowers. She noticed the lights along their spines pulse differently in each subgroup, almost like a language she didn't yet understand. "Do they know you're watching?" she asked. "They know I'm present," he said. "Presence matters more than observation. If you watch too eagerly, they'll react to you instead of being themselves. Watch them calmly and you'll see truth." Isla tried to sit still as he instructed. Minutes passed, then hours. She noticed how older creatures guided younger ones through subtle gestures, how the group reacted when the wind changed, how the plants themselves seemed to sway as if communicating with the herd. Each moment added a layer of complexity she had never imagined. By late afternoon, Isla felt her mind buzzing. She had learned more in a single day than she had from months of simulation on Earth. And yet, the most important lesson wasn't about the creatures themselves. It was about her. She realized how much she had relied on technology, on scanners and instruments instead of her own senses. Humans had a natural ability to understand, to empathize, to connect with the world, and she had almost forgotten it. Ronan spoke quietly, almost as if he were reading her thoughts. "See, This is why I told you to just sit down, not to waste time, not to be lazy, to learn, to notice, to understand. Isla looked at him and smiled. For the first time since landing, she felt a deep respect, not just for him but for what humanity could be. She understood that the true power of humans lay not in dominance or aggression, but in patience, observation, and compassion. As the sun began to set, casting long, violet shadows across the clearing, the herd started to settle. Isla stayed seated, watching them. Each pulse of light, each soft hum, each careful movement told a story she was only beginning to understand. She closed her notebook, feeling a quiet sense of wonder. "Tomorrow," Ronan said, "I'll show you more. You'll see how humans can guide, not force, how we can teach, not command, how we can build without breaking. You're ready for the next step?" Isla nodded. She felt a strange mixture of excitement and humility. She had come to study alien life, but already she had learned more about herself, about humanity, than she could have imagined. As they walked back toward the cabin, she glanced at the clearing one last time. The young creature she had observed in the morning nudged another, lights pulsing gently in rhythm. It was learning, growing, and thriving, and Isla realized she was part of that lesson now too. Ronan glanced at her with a knowing smile. "Remember, sister," he said quietly, "understanding comes before action. Trust the process, trust yourself, and trust them." Isla felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had trusted him before, almost reluctantly, but now she understood why. It wasn't blind faith. It was recognition. Recognition that patience, observation, and empathy could achieve more than any force or weapon ever could. That night she lay awake, thinking about the patterns she had seen, the gentle guidance of the older creatures, and the quiet wisdom of the rancher who had taught her to simply sit. Tomorrow, she would learn more. Tomorrow, she would see how humans could make a difference without violence, without control, just by thinking, observing, and caring. And as she drifted to sleep, the soft hum of the herd drifted through her dreams, a gentle reminder of the lesson she would never forget. Humans could be a force for understanding, and that understanding was power in itself. The next morning, the sky was painted in soft pinks and pale oranges, and Isla woke with a strange sense of anticipation. She had spent 2 full days observing the herd and learning from Ronan, and her notebook was already filled with hundreds of observations. Yet, she felt that today was different. Today would be a day that tested everything she had learned. Ronan was waiting outside the cabin as usual, leaning casually against the doorframe. His eyes sparkled with quiet amusement as he watched her approach. "Ready?" he asked. "For what?" Isla replied, adjusting her backpack. She had learned to expect surprises, but she didn't know what was coming. Ronan gestured toward the horizon, where the crystalline forest stretched endlessly. "The scientists from Earth are sending a team today. They want to start a terraforming project. I need you to see something before that happens." Isla's heart skipped a beat. Terraforming. That meant altering the environment, possibly disrupting the delicate ecosystem she had been studying. "We can't let them," she began, but Ronan raised a hand. "I'm not asking you to fight them," he said calmly. "I'm asking you to show them the truth. If they see it themselves, they'll understand. They might even change their minds." Isla swallowed hard. She had never tried to persuade anyone using observation alone. Her arguments usually relied on data, reports, and simulations. But Ronan's eyes were steady, patient, and full of quiet confidence. She realized he believed in her, and more importantly, he believed in humanity's ability to connect and understand. They walked through the forest in silence, the herd grazing nearby. The young creature she had observed 2 days ago now moved with more confidence, its lights pulsing in harmony with the others. Isla noticed the subtle differences in behavior, the way the older creatures guided it, the careful balance between freedom and guidance. "This is what I want you to show them," Ronan said, stopping near a small hill. "The way humans can understand and work with nature, not against it. The herd responds to us because we pay attention, because we care, because we notice the patterns they create. Isla nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had the knowledge, the observations, and Ronan's guidance, but convincing a team of scientists to see things differently would not be easy. She knew that humans often relied on technology, control, and force. But she also knew that humans were capable of empathy, creativity, and insight, the very qualities she would need to demonstrate today. By mid-morning, the team arrived. They were a group of 10 scientists, clad in bright suits and carrying scanners, sensors, and tablets. Their eyes widened as they took in the crystalline forest and the shimmering herd, but most of them immediately began setting up equipment. "Dr. Isla," one of them said, glancing at her with polite curiosity, "we're here to begin environmental surveys. We plan to introduce controlled terraforming agents to stabilize the atmosphere." Isla swallowed, feeling the weight of responsibility. She glanced at Ronan, who simply nodded as if to say, "Let them see." "Before you do that," Isla said, her voice steady, "I want to show you something. Something you can't measure with scanners or force with technology." The scientists exchanged puzzled glances but allowed her to lead them to the clearing. The herd was already aware of their presence, but it remained calm, moving with natural elegance. The young creature stepped forward, lights pulsing gently, and the others responded with synchronized hums and gestures. "Watch closely," Isla said. "Notice how they communicate. Not with words, not with aggression, but with gestures, lights, and sounds. They respond to observation and understanding." Hours passed. Isla guided the scientists through the subtle interactions of the herd. She pointed out how the older creatures guided the younger ones, how the group shifted in response to changes in wind and light, and how the creatures adapted to small, unexpected disturbances without panic or aggression. Some scientists took notes, but most were skeptical. One of them, a tall woman with a stern expression, spoke up. "This is impressive, yes, but it's anecdotal. We need measurable data. Terraforming can be controlled and precise. These observations, while interesting, cannot replace scientific intervention." Isla felt a spark of doubt, but she looked at Ronan. His calm presence reminded her of the lesson she had learned. Understanding comes before action. She took a deep breath and decided to show them, not tell them. She walked closer to the herd, kneeling on the moss. One of the older creatures approached, lights flickering gently. Isla mirrored its movements, subtle gestures of curiosity and patience. Slowly, the creature began to move in sync with her, its hums resonating with hers. The scientists watched, stunned. One by one, they noticed the patterns, the way the herd adjusted, the harmony of movement, the intelligence in every pulse of light. Isla invited them to try, guiding them to sit, to observe, to interact without interference. Slowly, hesitantly, the scientists followed. By afternoon, something remarkable happened. The herd responded not just to Isla, but to the scientists as well. The creatures mirrored their curiosity, nudged them gently, and even guided them towards subtle discoveries in the clearing. A hidden plant that changed color with touch, a crystalline stream that hummed in response to movement, and patterns in the moss that revealed the ecosystem's balance. Isla's heart soared. The scientists were seeing it, the intelligence, the harmony, and the power of understanding. No scanners, no machines, no aggressive terraforming plans could replicate this. Humanity's strength wasn't in control, it was in observation, empathy, and connection. The stern scientist approached her, eyes wide. I didn't realize they respond to us. They understand us in ways our instruments cannot measure." Isla smiled. "Exactly. Humans can see patterns, adapt, and build trust. That's why we can coexist with life instead of dominating it." Ronan stepped forward, his calm presence grounding the group. "This planet isn't ours to control," he said quietly, "but it is ours to understand. And if we understand it, we can help it thrive while thriving ourselves. That is the power of humanity." The team nodded slowly, the initial skepticism replaced by awe and respect. They began discussing alternative plans, ways to study and preserve the ecosystem without aggressive terraforming. Isla realized that together, they were creating a new model of exploration, one where humans worked with life, not against it. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the herd settled into its evening rhythm. Isla sat quietly, notebook in hand, watching the creatures move gracefully. She felt a deep satisfaction, a sense of purpose she had never known before. Ronan leaned against a tree beside her. "You did well today," he said softly. "You didn't argue, you didn't force. You simply showed them what humans can do best: think, observe, and connect." Isla nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. He smiled. "You could have. I just reminded you to trust yourself." As the first stars appeared in the alien sky, Isla realized that this was only the beginning. The real challenge wasn't just observing the herd. It was showing the world what humans could achieve when they used their greatest strength: understanding. And for the first time, she felt truly connected, not only to the creatures and the planet, but to the potential of humanity itself. The morning air was crisp, filled with the subtle hum of the crystalline forest. Isla woke before dawn, her mind buzzing with the events of the previous day. She could still see the scientists' faces, wide-eyed with awe, as they realized the intelligence and harmony of the herd. But she knew that one day of observation was not enough. True understanding required more deep, consistent connection. Ronan was already waiting outside, as always. He gestured for her to follow him through a narrow path she had not noticed before. "Today, you'll see what happens when humans work together with life, not against it," he said. "It's one thing to observe, it's another to participate." Isla nodded, anticipation mingling with nerves. She had learned to trust Ronan's calm wisdom, but she was unsure what this next step would involve. They arrived at a clearing where the herd had gathered. But unlike previous days, the creatures were not simply grazing. They were moving in synchronized patterns, a complex dance of lights and hums. The young creature she had watched for days now led a small group, pulsing its colors with confidence. "They're preparing," Ronan explained. "Not for us, but for themselves. The patterns they create are a form of communication, and they can respond to human interaction, but only if humans understand their rhythm." Isla took a deep breath and knelt on the moss. She remembered Ronan's advice: observe, understand, and then act with thought. Slowly she mirrored the movements of the creatures. Her arms rose and fell gently, her head tilted as if listening, her body synchronized to the soft hums filling the clearing. At first, the herd paused as though unsure of her intentions. Then gradually they began to respond, moving in gentle arcs and circles around her. Light pulses traveled through the group, following her movements. She could feel a rhythm emerging, a dialogue without words, a shared understanding of motion, space, and timing. The scientists arrived later that morning, carrying their scanners and tablets. At first, they watched skeptically, but Isla invited them to join, guiding them to sit quietly and follow the herd's rhythm. One by one they did, mimicking the gestures she had learned. Slowly the creatures adjusted to their presence, responding with increasing trust and harmony. "This is incredible," one scientist whispered. "They're teaching us." Isla smiled. "Exactly, and humans can teach them too without force. Just patience, observation, and understanding." Hours passed, and the interactions became more complex. Isla guided the scientists to notice subtle cues: a flick of light signaling direction, a gentle hum indicating attention, a shift in movement showing agreement. The herd moved as if conducting a symphony, and humans and creatures were the performers together. Ronan watched silently, his calm demeanor anchoring the group. Finally, he spoke. "See what humans can do, not with machines, not with technology, but with thought and empathy. We can understand, adapt, and participate in life instead of controlling it. Isla realized that this demonstration was more than just observation. It was a lesson in humanity's potential. Humans could build, create, and explore, but only when they worked with the world instead of trying to dominate it. She felt a swell of pride. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or machines, but in connection, intelligence, and compassion. By midday, the scientists began to grasp the depth of the lesson. One of them, who had been the most skeptical, stood and spoke quietly. I, I think I understand now. Our terraforming plan, it would disrupt this balance. But if we follow your method, observing, learning, connecting, we could work with the ecosystem instead of against it. Isla's heart lifted. This was exactly what she had hoped to achieve. She had not argued or forced her opinion. She had shown them, through patience and understanding, what humans could accomplish when they acted wisely. The young creature she had been following approached her, its lights pulsing gently. Isla reached out a hand, and it touched her fingers with delicate confidence. A wave of connection passed through her, an unspoken recognition of shared understanding. She realized that this was what Ronan had meant when he told her to sit and trust. The creatures began to move in patterns that seemed to tell a story. The growth of the herd, the guidance of the young, the balance of the forest. Isla's notebook was filled with symbols, sketches, and notes, but she knew that no words could capture the full depth of what she was witnessing. It was a living language, a dialogue of trust and cooperation. Ronan spoke again, quietly but firmly. Humans can build more than machines. We can build understanding. We can build harmony. And when we do, we become part of life instead of trying to dominate it. The sun reached its peak, casting brilliant reflections across the crystal trees. Isla looked at the scientists, who were now fully engaged in observing and participating. They had stopped thinking about measurements and outcomes and were instead immersed in learning and connecting. "This is more than a lesson," one scientist murmured. "It's a revelation." Isla nodded. "Yes, and it's a lesson for all of humanity. We can explore, create, and build, but our greatest power lies in understanding, not control." As the afternoon wore on, the herd gradually returned to calm grazing. The young creature curled beside an older one, its lights dimming to a gentle glow. The scientists sat quietly, absorbing what they had learned. Isla felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had shown them what humans could achieve when they trusted their minds, their empathy, and their ability to connect with life. Ronan clapped his hands softly. "Tomorrow, we'll go even further," he said. "You'll see how humans can lead without force, teach without imposing, and protect without destroying. But today, you've all seen what's possible when you listen." Isla felt a deep warmth in her chest. The lesson was clear. Humans did not need to dominate to make a difference. Their greatest power was thinking, observing, and understanding. That was the essence of humanity's strength, and she had witnessed it fully for the first time. As evening approached, the group returned to the cabin. Isla looked back at the clearing one last time. The herd moved gracefully in the fading light, a living demonstration of intelligence, harmony, and trust. She realized that what they had experienced today was not just a lesson for the scientists, it was a blueprint for humanity's future. Ronan walked beside her, his calm presence a steady reminder of everything she had learned. "You did well," he said softly. "You didn't just teach them about the creatures. You showed them what humans can do best. That's a rare thing." Isla smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known. "I think I understand now," she said. "Humans can be a force for creation, for harmony, for understanding. We just need to remember how to use it." Ronan nodded. "And that, sister, is why I asked you to trust me. Sometimes the simplest actions, sitting, observing, connecting, can teach more than any lecture or machine." Isla felt a quiet awe. She had come to this planet seeking knowledge about alien life. Instead, she had discovered something deeper, a vision of humanity at its best. A species capable of empathy, intelligence, and cooperation, able to understand and work with life instead of trying to bend it to its will. As night fell, the stars appeared in the alien sky, sparkling like fragments of crystal. Isla sat outside the cabin, notebook in hand, reflecting on the day. She had witnessed something extraordinary, humans and creatures moving together in harmony, a demonstration of what was possible when understanding and patience guided action. And for the first time, she felt truly confident in humanity's potential, not through force or domination, but through thought, observation, and connection. Humans could achieve greatness. They could explore, learn, and thrive while respecting the worlds they encountered. Isla closed her notebook and looked at Ronan, who was standing quietly nearby. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll take the next step. I want to see how humans can protect and nurture without ever hurting a living thing." Ronan smiled. "That's the plan, sister. And when we do, you'll understand fully why sometimes the best action is simply to sit, watch, and trust." As the forest hummed quietly under the night sky, Isla felt a profound sense of purpose and peace. The lesson was clear, the vision vivid, and the future full of possibilities. Humanity had the power to create harmony, to build understanding, and to inspire life itself. And she knew that she, alongside the rancher and the creatures, was part of that future. The morning sky was a soft shade of blue, tinged with violet, as if the planet itself were waking slowly. Isla stretched, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. The events of the past days had changed her. What had begun as a scientific mission had transformed into something far deeper, a journey of understanding, of the alien creatures, of the forest, and most importantly, of humanity itself. Ronan was already outside, leaning on a tree trunk and watching the herd. His calm presence, as steady as always, reminded Isla of the lessons she had learned: patience, observation, and empathy. She approached quietly, notebook in hand, and knelt beside him. "Today is the day," he said softly. "The scientists have plans to leave soon, but you'll have a chance to show them the next step, to teach them what humans can do when we think, understand, and care." Isla nodded. She felt a thrill of anticipation, but no nervousness. She had learned to trust in her knowledge, her instincts, and in the quiet guidance Ronan had given her. They walked toward the clearing. The herd was awake, moving gracefully through the soft moss, their lights pulsing in gentle rhythms. The young creature, now full-grown and confident, led a small group in patterns that seemed almost choreographed. It paused as Isla approached, flickering its lights as if acknowledging her presence. "Remember," Ronan said, "this is not about control, it's about collaboration. You will guide, not command. You will show, not tell. That is what humans do best." The scientists arrived soon after, looking curious and eager. Isla greeted them calmly. "Today," she said, "I want you to see how humans can protect, nurture, and work with life, without ever forcing or hurting it." The scientists exchanged uncertain glances. Some had already begun to admire the creature's intelligence, while others still relied on their scanners and technology. Isla held up her hands and smiled. "Leave the instruments for now. Watch, observe, and participate. You will learn more this way than any machine can teach you." Slowly, the scientists joined her in the clearing. Isla guided them to sit on the soft moss, instructing them to mimic the movements and gestures of the herd. At first, the creatures paused, wary of the new participants. But Isla had learned the rhythm, the subtle signals that invited trust. She mirrored the pulsing lights and gentle hums, showing the humans how to connect without interference. As minutes passed, the herd began to respond. Lights traveled through the group in waves, synchronized with human gestures. Hums shifted in pitch and tempo, creating a symphony of understanding. The young creature moved confidently among the humans, nudging them gently, guiding them to discover hidden plants, small streams, and subtle patterns in the moss. Isla watched as the scientists' expressions changed. Skepticism gave way to wonder, hesitation to delight. They began to see it. the intelligence, the harmony, the delicate balance of the ecosystem. And most importantly, they saw how humans could participate, contribute, and even teach without imposing. One of the scientists, who had been the most rigid, spoke softly. I never realized. Our technology, our machines, they can measure, but they cannot understand. This is learning, connection, cooperation. Isla nodded. Exactly. Humans can observe, adapt, and empathize. That is our greatest strength. It allows us to build relationships, nurture life, and explore without destruction. Ronan watched quietly, a proud smile on his face. Humans can be leaders, guides, and protectors, but we do it with thought, understanding, and care. That is how we can make a difference, not with force, not with domination. The scientists moved through the clearing, guided by Isla and the herd. They discovered small wonders. A crystalline flower that changed color when touched gently, a stream that hummed when water rippled across stones, and patterns in the moss that revealed the ecosystem's balance. Each discovery was a dialogue, a conversation between human and nature, a collaboration that no machine could replicate. Isla felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had come to this planet seeking knowledge, but she had gained something far greater, a vision of humanity at its best. Humans were capable of empathy, intelligence, and creativity. They could explore, learn, and thrive while respecting the worlds they touched. As afternoon approached, Isla guided the scientists to a small hill overlooking the clearing. From there, they could see the herd's movements in patterns, the flow of light pulses and hums forming a living network. The scientists were silent, absorbing the beauty and intelligence they had witnessed. This, Isla said softly, is what humans can achieve when we trust ourselves, think carefully, and work with life instead of against it. We can guide without forcing, teach without imposing, and protect without harming. The young creature approached her again, its lights pulsing gently. Isla extended her hand, and it touched her fingers with delicate confidence. A wave of connection passed through her, an unspoken recognition of shared understanding. She realized that this was the true lesson Ronan had wanted her to learn. The scientists gathered around, some kneeling beside her, mirroring her gestures. Slowly, the creatures included them in the dialogue, their pulses and hums responding to the humans' movements. The entire clearing became a space of cooperation, a living demonstration of what was possible when humans acted with empathy, intelligence, and care. Ronan spoke quietly, addressing both Isla and the scientists. This planet is not ours to dominate, but it is ours to understand. And when we understand it, we can help it thrive. That is humanity's greatest strength, the ability to think, observe, and connect. Isla felt tears prick her eyes. She had never imagined a lesson could feel so powerful. Humanity's potential was not in weapons, machines, or dominance. It was in thought, creativity, and empathy. That was the truth she had discovered, and now she could share it with the world. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long violet shadows across the clearing, Isla looked at the herd. The creatures settled gracefully, their lights dimming to gentle glows. She felt a profound sense of peace. The scientists, too, were quiet, reflecting on what they had witnessed. One scientist spoke finally, her voice full of awe. "I understand now. Terraforming, changing this world by force, we cannot do that. But if we follow your method, observing, learning, connecting, we can help this planet thrive and learn from it as well." Isla smiled. "That's the lesson. Humans are capable of great things, but only when we use our minds and hearts together. Understanding comes before action, and empathy guides our greatest achievements." Ronan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done well, sister. You've not only taught them about the creatures, you've shown them what humans can do at their best. That is a rare gift." Isla looked around the clearing, the scientists, the herd, and the vast crystalline forest beyond. She realized that humanity's role in the universe did not have to be one of conquest or domination. Humans could explore, discover, and create without harming. They could guide, teach, and protect, and in doing so they could inspire life itself. As night fell, the sky filled with stars that shimmered like fragments of crystal. Isla sat quietly, notebook in hand, reflecting on the journey she had taken. The lessons of the past days had shown her something she would never forget. The greatest power of humanity was not in technology or weapons, but in thought, understanding, and empathy. Ronan stood nearby, watching the stars. "Tomorrow we will continue to observe, learn, and grow," he said. "But today you have understood fully. You've seen why I asked you to trust me. Sometimes the best action is simply to sit, watch, and connect." Isla closed her notebook and looked at him, smiling. "I understand now. Humans can make a difference without force. We can create harmony and understanding wherever we go. That is who we are at our best." The herd hummed softly in the night, their lights flickering in gentle patterns. Isla felt a deep sense of belonging, not just to the creatures or the planet, but to the idea of humanity at its highest potential. She had learned patience, observation, empathy, and connection. And she knew that these lessons would guide her, and all of humanity, toward a future filled with understanding, creativity, and cooperation. As the night deepened, Isla and Ronan sat side by side, watching the gentle glow of the herd and the sparkling stars above. The planet was alive, vibrant, and full of wisdom, and humanity, she realized, had the capacity to be a part of that life, not as conquerors, but as thoughtful, caring explorers, capable of great things when guided by understanding. For the first time, Isla felt completely certain of one truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not its machines, not its weapons, not its control, but its mind, its heart, and its ability to connect. And with that understanding, she knew that wherever humans went, they could leave the world better than they found it.